right?
You don't want to be rational in that moment because
Absolutely.
rationality would say, yeah.
And that's literally what happens. So we have circuits of the brain that will actually inhibit and shut off the rational parts of our brain. And this is where we get to post-nut clarity, which is this experience that many men have where after you finish the sexual act, you feel like very clear-headed, right? And so then what happens is now why is that? That's because the lustful parts of your brain were inhibiting, like literally inhibiting and shutting off the thinking parts of your brain. And once the lustful part shuts off, then we start thinking again.
Probably in my early 20s was the first time I experienced post-nut clarity. And I think it was 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. Here's me talking about my masturbation. It was like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. And there was this person that I was like vaguely interested in. I'm like super horny. I'm arranging to meet them at like 3 a.m. I think I'm like 21 years old. And I decide to masturbate instead. And immediately after I masturbated instead, it was like a completely different person inhabited my body. I was like, why? Within seconds, I was like, why the fuck were you going to get out of bed at 3 a.m. in the morning and drive for 55 minutes to meet someone you have really no interest in? And it was like that person could not recognize the person I was 10 minutes earlier. Mm-hmm. And I remember one day trying to explain this to a woman, and she couldn't understand it. And I actually think she was quite offended by it. Because it's quite an offensive concept, I imagine, to a woman to hear that men experience a drop in interest, potentially, sometimes, after they masturbate.
Yeah, and I think the reason it's offensive to women is because in that moment, the dude is objectifying her, right? Like, it's like the woman becomes a sexual object. You're not a human anymore. And like, the reason they're offended is because that's exactly what happens. In that moment, there are such powerful drivers in our brain to drive us to procreate that like we don't view them as a complex human being with thoughts and feelings, right? We're just really, really horny. And that's literally what happens. Like in our brain, we stop viewing them as complex objects. And so the reason they get offended is sort of because they're right. And we start to view them that way. But that's also like biological. They're absolutely like societal and psychological things that we can get into in a minute, but that make things that worse. But I think it's like, it's understandable. Mm-hmm. And it's also like how we work.
Yeah, which is difficult to say.
Yeah.
But I just want to be honest about it, because I think if we start from a place of like total honesty about these things, we can actually reason up to some real solutions. Yeah. If we're trying to be politically correct or whatever, we're never going to get to real answers here.
Absolutely. And all men, I hope, will experience post-nut clarity. Yeah. And also, like, that doesn't make us bad men. It's a physiologic thing. And I think the key thing about whether you're good or bad is the way that you manage it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, is like, you have to understand what is happening in your brain in order to then willfully take a step back and sort of like think about, what am I feeling? And then eventually, once we understand where post-nut clarity comes from, we can cultivate it without having to nut.
Just this is, I know we're on a little bit of a tangent here, but do women experience the inverse of post-nut clarity? Because there's a lot of oxytocin released when we have sex. So I was just reading a